Chapter 1. An Eager Adventurer. It all began when a young goblin left his home of cracked wood to venture across Tamriel and conquer Malugbar. It was within months that the eager goblin had earned his kettle from Cadwell and was famished for more. Stepping into Imperial City at V1, Goblin Sama was ready to stake claim in the sewers. Winding tunnels full of enemies and Var, it provided to be a difficult challenge as the mobs were far too strong to face alone. It took many attempts and a lot of motivation to respawn, push out, die, respawn. Walking past Severin, the player who felt like a god countless times, until one day he met a fierce Templar by the name of Odeski. Goblin had seen this Templar face multiple foes at once and claim victory as he stuffed his pockets with the spoils of war. Goblin had never tried making friends with another player during his travels and was hesitant at first, but his desire to improve far outweighed the fears. Goblin approached the massive Templar and tugged at his chainmail. "You are very good, sir. Can you help me?" Goblin said. It was from then on that the two prowled the sewers together, Goblin going further than he had ever gone before, learning things he had never considered possible, and still dying all the same. Chapter 2. Battle Tactics and Not Releasing. Odeski and Goblin, having plundered and slain the sewers for what they were worth, decided to head topside and participate in the Great Alliance War. Goblin had tried before, but the fights were overwhelming. Odeski introduced small-scale and outnumbered fights to the Goblin, how to use LOS and abilities to prevent oneself from dying, and the pair attended many dueling events. The curve was difficult to grasp, but every day the two would head out on an excursion and practice. Death after death, sharing laughs along the way. It was during one of the many outings that the two stumbled across a solo player with the same resource. They fought together to repel the enemies in Goblin, and all of the players' skill urged Odeski to invite the newfound ally. Reluctant but willing he did, and it was a few days into the grouping with this player that the trio came upon Ash Mine in hopes of setting up a resource farm. Alas, this was the campaign of OMFG Pound, and 80 flocked to a non-yellow objective, hungrily flipping it back. The three were overrun by a dozen or more Dominion players. Goblin quickly slain and forced to watch from the ground, Odeski soon following Goblin to the earth. The third player would not give in. He fought and juked and cursed as the 80 attempted to grapple him to the ground. As Goblin and Odeski were about to release and run back, they heard the player say, "Don't release, I'll res." Amazed by the player's confidence and ability to attempt to res amidst the yellow resource, they watched awestruck as he began the res channel. It was sadly cut off, and the player soon died after, but it was at this moment they knew that they wanted to befriend this player. He was known as Eftasy. Together, these three conquered Hatteras and took their places 1, 2, and 3 on the leaderboard, claiming M back to back, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday night, each of them gaining the riches and glory that being Emperor brings. Chapter 3. A Sewer Rat. Time passed by and the three honed their skills even more. It wasn't until Eftasy took numerous trips in IC to farm for bone keys in hopes of becoming rich quick, that he ran into the Sewer Rat each and every time. This sorcerer roamed the sewers, taking down any foes that lurked amidst the zombie grind. Pairing up with Eftasy and filling their satchels to the brim, upon his return, Eftasy mentioned that the player was dominating sewers. His name was Cataly. Goblin, ecstatic that another Sork would play with them, rushed to bring Cataly in. They set off and did many trio and quad groups from Malesia Bridge all the way to either enemy faction's gates. Chapter 4. The List Boy, a New Dunker. The four returned to Arboretum, as that was the hot spot for duelers as well as a place to test your might. It was amidst the neighboring district streets that they ran into the same Ebonheart player over and over again. He would get run over every single time. Goblin, feeling for the poor soul, asked the brave Red to duel, as he had noticed his ability. They retired to the Arb and spent hours dueling one another. Losing more than he won, they both collapsed with a smile as the duels were tough, but most of all fun. Goblin had to have the Pact Warrior in his ranks and convinced Donnan to re-roll DC and be leveled by Goblin. The group later rolled to EP, but their blood will forever be blue on the inside and bleed red. It was now Cataly and Dunnan's turn to acquire Amp, so the squad helped them farm, push, and defend. Both had a taste of Amp within the week. Dunnan is now Bill Nye, the science guy. Chapter 5. Twin Findings. Rivals become friends. A summer fling of hate and competition between Goblin and Megblade sparked. Every encounter was to the death. Every whisper was a taunt and frenzy the other. The battles would rage from daybreak to sunset across the plains of Cyril to the walls of each alliance. Both the aspiring goblin and the Megblade, known as Aranar, refused to acknowledge the other as a worthy opponent, but deep down they strived to destroy the thorn in their side. It wasn't until Aranar and his duo Donjay left Mad King Crotha's raid that Goblin and his friends began to notice the skill that the two possessed. It took great humility to admit it as well, but they messaged the two and apologized for being so rude. That they had never really noticed the two within the DK raid. Paired with Aranar's transformation into Dubzug marked the start of friendly duels and a tentative relation. The night that the Elder Skills raid fell upon Hatteras and the dozens to push Emp and PvDor the map was also the night that Dubzug truly joined in partnership with the Goblin squad to halt the flow of blue. Goblin had previous ties to the guild as they were the first group he had joined as a youngling, but the guild drove him away with mismanagement of the guild, poor communication during raids, and a belittling attitude. This guild is homed in Trueflame, and they had come to ravage Hatteras in all her beauty. It was a small campaign, but a good one. Free of the lag and roaming hordes of players, Goblin could not have them color the map blue as it would limit the fun he and his friends could have later. Pulling some strings and favors, he'd rallied the help of Korean, who later swapped out for Fosso, Dubzug and Ordeski on EP to protect the north, and Driado and Ferdowsi. 3 groups of 2, each protecting 2 keeps and fighting off over a dozen Elder Skills men around the map. For hours this was the start of a friendship between Dubzug and Donjay, was quick to follow. Chapter 6, A Fan, the Hater, and the Troll. Goblin streaked along the roads of Cyrodiil and happened upon a Nightblade, who wanted rematch after rematch. It wasn't out of anger for being beaten, but because he had the passion to improve and figure out a way to win against the little sorcerer. It was a kindling that started a whole new event with Poseidon, Zesty, and Alathor. Both of the DKs despised Sorks and the mines that they placed, but gave in, and weeks later the 3 packed warriors were played with and against. This was around the time that Goblin and his friends started moving over to the Pact, driven out partially by the DC who disliked them and called them cheaters, but also because they had friends on the other side. It was a fragile relationship that was almost shattered by the spider Nihilos. It weaved the lies of deception into the warriors' ears, convincing them that we were dethroning Poseidon's Empt after we had assisted with the throning. Unstable communication nearly destroyed the brickwork Goblin and his friends had laid. Build, help for Poseidon and his Emp, assistance with defending his keeps from Dominion hordes, and hours of friendly duels and group fights for the sake of improving. At long last, the creases were ironed and Goblin had succeeded with recruiting the Fan, the Hater, and Troll. Saved from a Hole, Chapter 7. It was many months later that the next member of this was soon to be found, and the guild was to be named Animosity. Tucked within a 12-man K-hole group, Goblin watched this Stamplar slaughter his foes. At the time, Goblin was playing with some new-found EP friends and previous foes, Grumfring and a lot of DK worshippers. Grum, frenzied by the skill that the Stamplar was showing, rushed out to fight him. Grum was in his prime, and still the dual-wield menace proved to be a challenge. Exchanging near-fatal blows, the skirmish felt forever, but was in actuality only minutes before the Stamplar plunged his blades deep into Grum and watched him fall to his knees. Goblin had to have the Stamplar among his squad, entice the DC to run with him, and it only took a few group outings to convince the Stamplar, who was known as Kirimoto, the colored screams of his enemies. Chapter 8, Ashes to Ashes. Months went by before the group recruited anyone else, and at this point Animosity had been formed officially. What the guild wanted was a Megdike to control the battle during the fights with Roots and Banners. A few were invited as well as the next future member, but they were all left of their own accord, or were removed for not meeting the standards. This was also a time when the guild was taking an extended break from ESO to play other games, or had become too busy with life. The one DK who left on his own was later invited, and has now become a member of Animosity. Goblin had watched his videos and seen him play, but ultimately Dubzug had begun grouping with him because no one else was playing nearly as much. The DK, Kratos Stormforged, duo with Dubzug on the battlefield, spread his wings and took flight into the enemies of Animosity. Chapter 9, We Need More Springs. It was around the time of Battlegrounds being released that we were in need of a healer who was both amiable and sturdy. Having a few connections of multiple people in the guild, Memphis was picked up as a healer for Dubzug in Battlegrounds and later became a staple to the group. His heels pushed the longevity in fights that seemed unimaginable, and he is currently benched by life, but Memphis shall return. Chapter 10. The Rice Farmer. A boy built like a man, eyes no wider than an infant's, and still he possesses more skill than almost all of Cyrodiil's champions. Goblin could remember looking up to Cody back when they used to duel with Odeski. The two would gawk at his prowess. Flash forward, and now Cody has begun assimilating into the group after a night of undaunted dailies. FTC was a friend with Cody and sparked the ignition for bringing him into Animosity. These are the members of Animosity, and we don't take kindly to threats.
Nigga clan be the set, we don't take kindly to threats, nigga, we don't take kindly to threats.
SS be the set, we don't take kindly to threats, we don't take kindly to threats.
Nigga clan be the set, we don't take kindly to threats. Nigga slide for the free, kill for the feet, pull out the stick, then I pull out the ski. Put a motherfucking face on the white tee, that's what a nigga get being P.I.E. Sweet, nigga you D.I.E. Sleep, motherfucker that's 6